All right, the number 6 best film of 2012 is the film that single-handedly restored my faith in the horror movie genre, and that is Cabin in the Woods, a wonderfully delightful fright film that for the first time in years, I can admit, I was jumping, my heart was rattling, and it's the first time that has happened to me during a horror film in years. I went to see this with a girl I was dating at the time, and honestly, we were both just almost in each other's clutches, just wondering what was going to happen next. And I loved it. And this, you know what, this film, in addition to being scary, is downright hilarious. There's a lot of great dialogue here. And not in an unintentional fashion like most horror films that we see. And not in a Freddy Krueger cracking one-liners fashion kind of way either. It's just a very smartly written script. And this film just takes you every which way. And it intentionally paints the characters as your usual horror film cliches. The jock, his best bud, the innocent girl, her sexpot friend, and the stoner. And yes, this film could be one of the first in horror film history. A stoner, ladies and gentlemen, that is actually funny. Yes, this guy is hilarious. He is actually played by Fran Kranz, and he is just unbelievably great here. He has some of the best lines, and he really, really cracks us up. Also joining them along for the ride is, of course, Thor star Chris Hemsworth, Kristen Connolly, Anna Hutchinson, and Jesse Williams round out the rest of the cast, and they do pretty well for themselves, too. I can't describe too much without giving anything away, because there's a lot of twists and turns in this film. I can tell you, first and foremost, they do go to a cabin, and things aren't on the up and up. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, let me assure you, it's not anything but familiar. This film intentionally does that. It intentionally suckers you in thinking you're in another horror film. And it slowly unravels, and it just gets exciting and more breathtaking as it goes on, I have to say. I also enjoyed the likes of character actors extraordinaire Bradley Whitford and Oscar nominee Richard Jenkins in this film, giving it a much well-added presence. For me, the horror genre doesn't blow me away at all anymore. While I do find myself entertained, giving maybe 3 stars or so to any typical entertaining horror film, and usually panning most of them, they're just, usually these days, they're just, the same ridiculous bloodfest with bad actors, naked women, with stylish trailers that will make teens make their dates take them to these movies, and swoon to the box office, helping the film create a profit on opening weekend because it had such a low budget, and it's just being forgettable by the next weekend. Cabin in the Woods, again, like I said, it has its methods to its madness, and while and again, it just makes us think we have everything figured out, but it suckers us in, again. It really does, and I love that it does that. I want to be challenged by a horror film. And the aside story here is at first we'll just have a lot of us thinking, as the kids would say, WTF. But not since 2001's Ginger Snaps, which was actually my controversial pick for best film of the year, have I become so enamored with a horror film. Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard need to receive big credit for a script that doesn't insult anyone's intelligence. And Goddard also directed the film and gave it a style, which that was, for lack of a better term, eye-popping. Now, some criticize the climax of this film, but to me, I think it didn't ruin it at all. It was just kind of, out there, and it needed to be that way, though. And it was every bit as enjoyable as the rest of the film, which is why Cabin in the Woods is my number 6 best film of 2012.